Welcome to the Piqua Board of Education meeting for September 22nd, 2016. Will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bostic.
Here.
Mr. Luby.
Here.
Mr. Height.
Here.
Mr. Gregerson.
Here.
Mr. Patricio.
Here. And we stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to our next item on the agenda, it's the approval of the minutes of August 25th, 2016. Has the board reviewed the minutes, and do I have a motion to approve the minute?
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. Then we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions to the agenda? I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we have board reports. Mr. Height, you have the Upper Valley Career Center.
We've got a short one tonight because we haven't met yet.
Very good. That's a good one. And I don't have any items from the hearing or from the public, so we'll skip C and go on to the treasurer's agenda. And Assistant Treasurer is here.
Yes.
Would you like to give a report?
We have gone ahead and done with our efficiency stipend this year. That has been taken care of. We ended the balance with a good balance, and we had at least 11 days carryover, which was wonderful this year. We also have taken care of our tuition reimbursements as well. Quite a few people this year have taken classes. It's been a real good year for that.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions to the Assistant Treasurer?
No.
Or have any of the reports submitted? And I may have a vote to approve the Treasurer's agenda.
So move.
Our motion in a second, please.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Superintendents Report. This is the next item on our agenda.
Yes, we have a unique opportunity this year that is new to the area, and it's regarding Thursday night lights, not Friday night lights, but Thursday night lights. And I invited Chip Hare to come and talk because Piqua gets to participate in that, and I think that's a great opportunity for us. So, Mr. Hare?
Thanks, Mr. Thompson. Piqua is, once again, very fortunate to be a part of something that's on the cutting edge. Channel 22 had contacted us in the spring and came up with this concept of having games that were normally on Friday nights and highlighting a game of the week and playing it on a Thursday night and then playing it live on television. They approached the Sydney Athletic Director and myself about the whole situation. We threw it to our coaches. Both coaches thought it was a great idea. The concept was more people might show interest, not just in your local communities, but the general Miami Valley. So we were the first first two schools to sign the contract on this, and everybody else kind of followed in since we did it. So we were really excited to be a part on the elevator on the ground floor of that part. The game will be next Thursday night. Opportunities that it gives us is both schools, and of course Piqua, will have an opportunity. We nominated a young lady who was the scholar athlete of each school. She will have an opportunity to be put in for a scholarship of a large amount of dollars at the end of the year. They'll have a banquet that the TV stations are going to put together. So that's fantastic for her. Also gives us an opportunity to highlight our schools. Our principal, Mr. Messick, will be interviewed at halftime. Of course, he'll be the highlight of the show. And of course, the Indians hopefully can be a good night for hopefully the Indians to get a win against what has been a rekindled rivalry between the Jackets and the Indians. It should be a good contest and a competitive game, and we look for a great crowd on both sides. Any questions?
Chip, just the viewing area, is it Channel 8 or Channel 3?
It's it's a good question. If you're looking at Channel 3, they show the national syndicated programming on that. If you're Time Warner Cable, it would be 995, channel 995.
But it's just going to be our area.
It'll be in the Miami Valley, so
Okay.
they'll be in there. Anybody that has WKEF or Channel 22 can pick that up. In Middletown, as far north, I believe, as almost Lima.
Because sometimes you'll pick up a game, they'll have Northeast Ohio, Solon, I've seen that on, and all around the state. That
That's
won't
through Time
spread.
Warner Cable, which is a different syndicated.
Okay.
This is actually through ABC, Channel 22, through their own commentators.
Okay.
Do you have a question, Belinda?
Yeah, what time will that be?
That'll be a 7 o'clock kickoff on Thursday night. That's the September 29th. Make sure I clarify that. September 29th, 1 week from tonight. Also, one other update on the athletic side. We've had a couple people ask about our track. We are in the final stages. If you remember in my last board report, we had to put in a long jump runway, and they will be laying that on Monday, and that should be all finalized by the end of October. And the only thing that we're waiting to do on the large track is to line it, and we are just waiting for them to hear. We're waiting to hear from them on when those dates will be. We're trying to get a weekend so we don't have to interfere with our business, with our football and our cross-country teams using that facility.
Chip, don't they replay those games on Sunday too, I think? don't
They do. There
Yes.
is a replay on that. Correct. So it's a great opportunity to not only highlight our program, but our school system and our coaches and, of course, our student athletes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Next, we have our state report card release that was out last week. Thank you to Belinda and the Pickle Daily Call for providing highlights to the community on that. Anyone can go to the Ohio Department of Education website and just type in report card, and you can look up any district's report card. The state has a 32-page technical document that goes with that. There's a lot of information. Not always really easy. A lot of it has changed. You've heard a lot of districts talk about how much has changed and how the targets continue to move throughout that process. What we did in Piqua, we immediately met with our administrators. We went over that when the preliminary data came out. Our goal is to set incremental targets, and we've done that over the next 4 years. We've done that at the building level. The principals have worked with their teachers to realize what that growth would be like over the next 4 years. So they've set those goals using this year's data as our baseline data, since from this point forward, we've been told the state test will be the same. They've changed the last 3 years, but from this point forward, they're supposed to be consistent. So that's why this year becomes our baseline data, because we feel like it'll be more consistent for us to grow from there. We want to eliminate Fs from our report card. We had one of our overall Fs was in gap closing, and we really want to try to get those off of our report card because we feel like that's a great first step for us to move toward. A significant number of districts received Fs. I think something like I saw 70% more districts got Fs this year than they had last year. So a lot of big changes with those new assessments. We are going to work really hard to be competitive with our results. The celebrations we have for our report card is our progress area, which is also known as value added. And you've heard a lot of districts talk about how difficult value added is to calculate. We literally did not get that until the night before they released the report card. So we didn't have really any time to analyze that until that came out and we got it. But the exciting news is they break that into different categories. So overall, our students, we got an A in that. Our gifted got a B in that category. The lowest 20% of students in achievement got an A, and so did our students with disability. And what that says is we're growing our students. So even though the results of the test, the test has changed over the last few years, we still were able to realize some growth. And I think that says a lot for the work that we've done at our building levels to set goals for that. So I'm excited about that piece, and that is worth certainly celebrating. The other thing we did was we looked at similar districts, and similar districts is data that's released by the Ohio Department of Education. They try to find districts that have the same demographics as we would, the same kinds of student populations, same kind of economics, et cetera. There's lots of criteria that goes to that, and then the state will say, here are the 20 most liked schools to you. And I find that a really good report to look at. You have that information, and last year when we got that, quite frankly, we were at the bottom of the list, and we all felt not good about that. This year, we've risen to the middle or above the middle, and I think that's a really great step to show that, again, we've made growth and we're becoming competitive, which is one of our goals, is to be able to say that amongst our groups that are like us, we're able to really kind of stand our own. So I'm pleased with that data, gave that to you so you could look at that. The other nice advantage to that is we will start calling each other. People will call us and ask us what we're doing in categories. We'll call schools and ask them what they're doing, and we'll start comparing notes and try to find out what's working in other districts that have similar kids. So that's a good piece for us to look at. Finally, our last celebration that I want to highlight is they did have some Ohio Air assessments last year in social studies and science. Those continued this year, so that was the consistent assessment. Every one of those tests, we grew with our percentage of kids passing it, except for fifth grade science, which we went down by 1 point. So the fact that that test continued and we were able to show growth in every single one of those areas, in some areas pretty significant growth, was a good celebration. The problem is the state moved the passage rate, and they're going to do that again next year. It'll move up to 80%. So even though we're realizing growth, we're not going to get, at least this year, you're not going to see that we gained more indicators because they moved that target. So if you look at the indicators across the state, you'll see a lot of districts got Fs and Ds for that reason because they moved that passage rate. So, but we did show growth. Our work is going to be intentional. We've got buildings goals, principal goals, teacher goals that are addressing this issue. We're looking at academic growth. We're focused on it. Building principals are working on monthly checklists that attacks the academic areas. And when we come out and do walkthroughs, we're going to have conversations with principals about that work each month as they work through that information. So that's a good piece. And finally, I just want to highlight the work the curriculum department is doing. It's a good 3 to 4 year plan as well that fits with our standards-based assessment and grading. We're looking at some common assessments. We're looking at changing how we communicate our grades. So rather than telling a parent, your child earned a C, we're really being specific in terms of your child earned this in terms of mastery toward a standard, and it's going to give much more specific information. So not only can the student, the parent, and the teacher really realize where that student is in their understanding and the depth of knowledge that the standard's asking them for. So we're doing a lot of professional development. We're moving toward that area. Teachers are working on those assessments, and it's really giving them a better understanding of where the standards are and what it's asking them to do. So that's what we're doing. We're working really hard on it. You've seen a lot of districts say they're frustrated. You know, we are too, but we're taking the challenge, and our goal is to grow. You know, we're gonna grow, and we're gonna do the best we can with it. Any questions on the report card?
At what point will the state leave the passage rate the same instead of keep?
It's supposed to get as high as 80, and this year the frustrating point that districts have is they didn't say what was going to be the growth target, how they were going to change it. They kind of waited until they got averages, and then they said, let's make this the passage rate. So a lot of districts just didn't know what they were reaching toward. Now, some of them are 50 to 60% passage rates this year. It's going to go to 80% next year. So that's a big jump. That's a lot to expect some districts to move toward. So for example, when you look at our county, third grade reading results, if 80% would have been this year, one district in our county would have made that indicator. So as it was, I think only 4 or 5 districts made it. So currently in the state, I think something like 46% of all third graders did not make proficiency in reading. You know, I don't think 46% of our students can't read in the state of Ohio. So that's the cry out I think you hear from superintendents and schools is it really that the kids aren't performing or that we're doing that bad of a job, or is the assessment system, the scoring, the cut scores, is that the problem? So again, I think our best effort right now that will keep us sane and provide good goals is to grow incrementally and not let ourselves be stale. And that gives us a fair shot at really achieving some goals and feeling good about the work we're doing. And I'm really proud of what our teachers and students and even our parents are doing to grow. We did some really good growth this year, and I think that's important to highlight.
Wayne, I wonder what's wrong with the state allowing districts to achieve some success for even a year, then raise the bar. I mean, it's counterproductive to what you want your students and teachers.
Yeah, and a perfect example is the end of course exams. This year, they really touted that the graduation rate was really good across the state. The problem is with the end of course exams, kids have to earn, is it 18 points, Mr. Mesick? 18 points to be able to get a diploma. So when they take an end of course exam in algebra, geometry, et cetera, they get so many points toward that. I think if I remember correctly, something like 56% of kids across the state didn't pass algebra. They got no points toward their graduation. So in 2 or 3 years, you're going to see a lot of districts with Fs on the graduation rate because kids cannot get those end of course exams and those points done. So it's going to look like we went from, everybody's graduating pretty well to now all of a sudden we don't have kids graduating. So it's just one example of how the system's set up to where you feel like there's nothing you can do to get to that achievement level. So again, our goal is to grow. We're trying to grow. We're trying to just do what we can to get kids through. And this isn't the only thing that gives us our identity in Piqua either. We've got a lot of other great things going. So we have to recognize that too. And the principals have done a nice job of making sure kids are successful in other areas and that we're recognizing other factors that we're doing in our schools. Any other thoughts or questions?
No, thank you for the report.
Yeah. So part of this work too, each month, the building that is hosting the board meeting, the principals would like to come up and do I asked them a 5-minute or less kind of synopsis of the work they specifically are engaged in. So Jeff is our first nominee for this work, and I would point out, I don't know if you will, but they really in the middle of it. They're really starting to do this. So it's in the infancy part, and I know his team has done some good things, but Jeff's going to talk a little bit about what the junior high school is doing to affect academic growth.
Yeah, certainly some of this is very much in the infancy stages. We are meeting even next week to continue to start to set goals and finalize goals. I guess not set. We've started that process with the finalized building and departmental goals. The first thing I'd like to say is I appreciate the efforts of our students and our staff from last year and the growth that we were able to make. I think our value-added scores somewhat mirrored what the districts were at our building level, so I'm really proud of our teachers and our students for their work last year. The people at central office that helped support us last year getting that done, Rob Messick spent a lot of time out here working with our teachers, so I appreciate that. And we just want to keep some of those really good things going that we did last year, so that's our first goal, is looking at what we did last year that worked and making sure we keep doing that. Specifically in some of our areas, we looked at our report card and looked at what are the things we can try to affect immediately. One of the things we looked at, there's a gifted indicator that every building gets, and there are 3 components of that you have to meet to get the gifted indicator. We met 2 out of 3, so we were very close. The one we didn't meet was the performance index expectation, and so I have a meeting scheduled for next week with Jessica Sizemore, our gifted coordinator, to start to look at everything from are we coding our students correctly in the classes that they're in to get the proper credit for them. And with performance index, if students are taking accelerated classes, they get bonus points essentially in performance index. And one of those things that we're not 100% sure about is, did we get full and proper credit for that? We have a lot of students at Piqua Junior High School taking high school credit courses. We have students taking Algebra 1. We have students taking geometry. So we want to make sure we're getting credit for that. So looking at things just as simple as coding students and making sure they're coded correctly. In math, one of the things that we're doing is we very intentionally scheduled in both 7th and 8th grade roughly 30 students who, through some assessment data that we had, both local assessments and state assessments, students that we identified as struggling, and scheduled them into, I guess, what ultimately becomes an intervention type course where they are getting extra math on a daily basis. We have an advisory period every day at Piqua Junior High School that's 30 minutes, and those students have that 30-minute blocked with a full math course. So they're spending, instead of the regular 43 minutes a day in math class, they're getting 73 minutes a day of math instruction, really solid math instruction, very individualized. Teachers are team teaching those courses, so we're excited about that. In science, we did some really good things last year in professional development with a lady by the name of Angela McMurray, who's a science specialist out of Darke County, and we're going to continue that. We have our first session with our science teachers already scheduled with her. I believe it's October 7th. They're going to spend a day with her targeting, I think it's the force and motion unit of 8th grade science, and that's a real heavy chunk on the 8th grade science test, so they're going to tackle that. And they missed getting the indicator by 0.6%, which really is maybe 1.5 kids. So they're really, really hungry to get that and really excited to get that. That's 2 years in a row that they've been a point or less from getting the indicator, so they're really motivated to get that. In the language arts world, we are continuing to, I guess, focus on and target students who show through the data that we've collected, again, both locally and with state assessments, that students that are below grade level in terms of reading and getting as many kids as we can scheduled into our Read 180 program. Our Read 180 program has approximately 60 students in it again this year, 40 or so in 7th grade and 20 in 8th grade. And we saw tremendous growth from students that participated in Read 180 last year. I think probably when we looked at the initial data from the state in terms of who passed and who didn't, a lot of our Read 180 kids didn't pass, but as we reflected, most of them were scoring the year before in the limited category, and many of them bumped up to the basic category, which is the next step up. And so probably a big part of what contributed to our value added measure being very positive. So they grew on average over 1 grade level. It was, I think our average growth for all the students in that program last year was a grade and a half. So they grew a grade and a half in their reading comprehension level in 1 year, which was really exciting, making up that gap that they had. And that will lead to that AMO, the gap closing as well. A lot of those students are also identified with disabilities. So that's a subgroup that gets affected in the gap closing section as well. In all areas, we're going to be focusing on professional development in terms of understanding the standards, the curriculum standards, and not just knowing what they are. Our teachers know what they are. That's not the problem, and it's taking it to the next level in terms of making sure we're matching instruction with the rigor of the standards, and making sure we really understand where kids fall, where they are with what level the standards are asking them to understand. So if it's a deep level of analysis that they need to know, are we asking them to show us that? Instead of a surface level type understanding, are they getting that real deep level analysis? So I'm working with, and Chad and I are working with Scott Bloom. We have an appointment set up, I believe, for next week to schedule professional development this year for our teaching staff on really focusing on standards and standards-based instruction. And that's going to be all areas. Well, so we have a lot going on.
Do. Very, very good. Great report.
Questions?
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Under other, just to kind of highlight a couple of academic things going on. You heard Mr. Messick being mentioned in some of the work that he did with the algebra block, and you've heard a lot about the algebra block. They were chosen this year to be one of the presenters at the OSBA conference, so they're going to get to model and share some of the work that they're doing, which is a great, I think, privilege, and says a lot about the work that they've done. And I can't think of a better example of us spreading some of the great things that are happening than that program. So I'm really pleased and proud of that. Our gifted teachers are going to get to go and highlight our students that did the Invention Convention. We had some students that went to the national level, and they get to kind of highlight that and talk to teachers about what that process was like. So that's another example of our district getting to be out there and really talk at the state level about our work. And finally, the state board president has contacted our transportation supervisor, Beth Kane, and asked if she would come and be a part of a 4-person group throughout that's going to create a new pupil transportation rules handbook for the state. And he kind of indicated that in the past they did a large group of stakeholders in that, and this year he targeted just specific people to come and do that, and Beth was one of 4 people and throughout the state that was chosen to do that. So real proud of her to get to do that and represent our district again as a leader in the state that will affect transportation across the entire state of Ohio. With that, that's my report.
Very good. Thank you, Dwayne. On the superintendent's agenda, which is the next item up, do you have any comment?
No real comments. Bus routes, we're approving those. The life skills course we talked about before, and you had a chance to review that, so nothing really on there. We do appreciate the people through the grants and the donations. Had a lot of really good grants this year for teachers and through lots of different grant opportunities, so we appreciate that support the community's giving us in those areas.
Does anybody have any questions of Dwayne? Okay. I have a motion to accept the superintendent's agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Sarah, will you call the roll? And before we leave, Sarah, thank you for filling in for
Oh, you're most welcome.
Jeremy tonight.
You're most welcome. Mr. Height?
Aye.
Mr. Luby?
Aye.
Mr. Bostic?
Aye.
Mr. Gregerson?
Aye.
Mr. Petruzio?
Aye. Move on to the personnel agenda. Mr. Assistant Superintendent, do you have any comments?
Just a couple things. I would like to note that we've included a list of our substitute teachers every time we get somebody that asks or inquires about becoming a substitute teacher. I meet with them few minutes of a meeting to get to know them, and then they follow up with the county. And obviously, we've added that on the agenda tonight, as well as our long-term subs. Once again, a volunteer list. Every month we get requests from people to volunteer in the district, and the list continues to grow. So a huge thank you to those folks. And at this point, you can see there's just a mixture of personnel items on there tonight, nothing that stands out particularly with new teachers or anything like it did last time when we had all the new folks introducing themselves. So with that, if there are any questions, I'll take those. Outside of that, look for a motion to approve the personnel agenda as presented.
Have a motion, please? There are no questions.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Sarah, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bostic?
Aye.
Mr. Luby?
Aye.
Mr. Height?
Aye.
Mr. Gregerson?
Aye.
Mr. Patrizio?
Aye. Under old business, there is nothing. Under new business, there is nothing on my sheet. Does anybody have any new business to bring up? Move on. I don't have anybody here for a hearing of public non-agenda items. There's nothing before me at this point in time, so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is October 25th, 2016 at 6 p.m. and we'll be at Mr. Messig's facility, which is Piqua High School.
That's a Tuesday, right, Frank?
25th is a Tuesday.
Okay, maybe people make a note of that because you get used to coming on Thursday and you'll miss it.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Have a good evening.